This is the plaintiff, Dominic Coppola. He says the defendant showed up to tow his car, and the guy tried to start it up and then drove it onto his flatbed. Oil started leaking out of the engine. His motor's ruined. Now he's owed for a new engine. He's suing for $5,000, the amount he needs to make his car go again. This is the defendant, Mark DeVella. He says the plaintiff's engine suffered from a complete engine failure. The thing had 147,000 miles on it, and it didn't work way before he towed it. Owe him for a new motor? No way. He's accused of a terrible tow.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says that his car was damaged when the careless defendant towed it and damaged the engine. But the defendant claims the old thing needed a new engine before he touched it, so he's not paying. It's the case of Motor Meltdown.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Coppola, what happened?
I had come out of T-Mobile and my car wouldn't start.
Do you know why it wouldn't start?
I have no idea. I'm not a mechanic. I have no idea.
Okay, how old is the car?
It's 12 years old.
What kind of car is it?
It's a Jeep Liberty.
And how many miles did it have?
147,000 miles.
Okay. And then, so what happens? You call the tow company.
Right. I called my roadside assistance and I called the tow company, and the driver came and he parked his rig across the park on the other side of the parking lot. And he asked me what happened. I said my car wouldn't start. So I showed him. I tried to start it and it wouldn't start. It just made like bucking noise, and then I shut it off. He's telling me I got to step on the gas. I says no, I'm not stepping on the gas. So he went in the car. He actually what he did
Okay, I'm sorry. Stop. Why wouldn't you step on the gas?
Because my car, for the whole time I've had it, as soon as I turn the key, it starts right up. And never had a problem in the 12 years I've had the car.
Well, I know.
And
nobody has a problem until the day they have a problem. But what I'm saying is you specifically told him, no, I'm not going to step on the gas. Why, though?
Because my mechanic told me for years ago that whenever the car won't start, you don't force it.
Don't flood
and
it.
I did not want to force it.
Okay. Well, it's not a matter of force. It's a matter that you flood it, and then now it won't start also. But what I'd like to understand is if you tell him, no, we're not doing that, why do you then let him in your car to do it?
First of all, I'm not a tow truck driver, and I'm not a mechanic. So I assumed he knew what he was doing.
Okay. And what did he do?
What he did was he went inside the car, he started the car, stepped on the gas, backed it up. Now, mind you, the flatbed was down across the parking lot. It was already down. So he backed it out, the car conked out. He started it again. He drove it to the back of the flatbed. The car conked out again. When he did it a third time, he stepped on the gas a little harder and he drove it up to the flatbed. And when he drove it up and he started lowering the flatbed, my specific answer to him, question to him was, is that you or is that me when I saw the oil come down? He goes, no,
the
that's
oil
you.
come down where? Where did you see oil come down?
On the flatbed.
Okay.
On the flatbed.
Okay.
So what he did was he grabbed some drying agent and threw it all over to try to clean up the flat. Now, mind you, there was no oil on the floor, on the ground, anywhere in the parking lot. So he had all the oil from my car on his flatbed.
Okay.
Now, what they're telling me is that I already have problems with the engine. No way.
No, I'm asking you to tell me first. Before we do that, you tell me then what happens after they tow your car. They tow it to where? To your mechanic?
To my mechanic's house, because that's where he did all my work.
Okay, and to your mechanic's house. So is that a friend of yours?
Well, he became a friend after 20-something years that he's been dealing with my cars. He's always worked on my cars for over 25 years.
Okay, and you take the car to him, and what does he say?
He checks it out, and he tries to change the plugs, and it still wouldn't start. That's when he decided to check the engine, and he saw the big crack on the valve cover. And he called me, and he told me, he goes, listen, you got a problem here. He says the piston rods went through the valve cover, and damaged it. Then when he took the valve cover off and he saw the piston rods were bent and one was broken, and the little hole, if you see in the pictures, it's broken.
Okay, but
I
how is
sent you-
that their fault? What did they do other than step on a gas pedal that would cause all the stuff you're saying?
He stepped on the he forced the car to go up. He forced the car.
Right. How does that
I mean,
crack? The damage you're saying, how are you going to prove it was done by them this way, by stepping on the accelerator on the car? How are you proving that?
How am I proving it? I'm proving it by my mechanic. He says that, first of all,
Is your
the car-
mechanic
the car
here to
should not-
testify?
No, he's not.
Okay, there's just a handwritten note by something called M&V Tires.
That's
That
his business.
says-
That he still pays taxes on that business.
Okay, that says
That's his private business.
the car was forced onto the flatbed. Okay. Did you ever take it to a certified mechanic to assess the damage and who can tell me either through letter or affidavit or something that it's because of stepping on an accelerator at a time when one shouldn't or something, something that attaches it to this? Because that's just the sentence you told the guy, that it was forced onto the fire. He wasn't there. He doesn't know. And he's not saying in here, even if this was a certified mechanic, which I don't see that. I see it's a tire place. But even if it was, he would have to explain how it is that whatever they did caused it. Let me hear from you, Mr. DeVella.
I don't have a whole lot to say here. He hasn't met his burden of proof, but I mean, the first thing is the car didn't travel more than a total distance out of the parking space onto the back of the flatbed more than 35 feet. Did it stop 2 or 3 times? I don't know. My driver was here waiting in order to testify. He had to leave. He missed a number of calls. That's besides the point. In the notes of the tow from the service that we get from the insured, Mr. Coppola, on the page that was submitted to you in evidence, it clearly states at 10 o'clock in the morning, it says motor no good. And that was received at 10:03 a.m. before it was dispatched to us.
Right, but that's internal notes. Who writes that?
The interviewer of the phone call, which is the insurance company, before it comes over to us, we didn't receive the call until 12:09 p.m. We dispatched the call at 12:11. We went en route within a minute, okay? We arrived on scene 20 minutes later. We started the tow at 1:12 in the afternoon, and we completed it about 45 minutes later.
Who's Luisi?
Yeah, we don't have it.
Lewis, maybe it says Lewis exclamation point. That's what it says.
From the insurance company to the owner of the company. The owner of the company is Lewis. I'm the treasurer. So the owner of the company is Lewis, and that was a note to him from the insurance company.
How do I know?
That was
right. How do I know this is from the insurance company? Because this is.
So if you look at the call number on all 3 of the documents, they all have call number 237. These are all insurance documents that come in from the insurance company from the towed. And you can see on the bottom
When
of
you
the
called for a tow, did you tell them the motor's no good, Mr. Coppola?
No, all I said was the car wouldn't start. I never said the motor's no good. First of all,
Okay.
that's a total lie.
How are you proving, let me just ask you, Mr. DeVello, at some point did Mr. Coppola call you and say, you ruined my motor and you owe me $5,000?
No. So what happened is we were hit with a lawsuit without any warning. There was no demand. So Lewis and I were having breakfast one morning and talking about company business, and he said, why don't you call the guy and find out what's going on? So in the small claims paperwork is Mr. Coppola's contact information. So I told him that I was the loss mitigation manager and an officer of the company, and that, we get these claims from time to time. And if it's a valid claim, because accidents happen, we'll put it through the insurance company. So I went out to where the car was located, which is not the receipt of what you have. This is a residential home in Elmont that we go to, not the location in College Point that you have a receipt for.
Okay.
And I gave you a set of...
Who did he tell? Wait, when you call him and you say, I'd like to inspect the car, I guess, he tells you that it's where?
In Elmont.
It is at his mechanic's?
House.
Right, but does he tell you that's my mechanic's house?
He does.
Okay, so you go over there. Do you speak to the mechanic?
I do. So first, Mr. Coppola met us there on site. I introduced myself. We had the tow truck driver with us as well. And I said, I need to take photographs to the insurance company in case there's something wrong. And I took a set of 23, 24 pictures. And in conducting an interview and opening the vehicle up and taking a look at trying to, see if the car has any electric to it or anything else, the mechanic eventually showed up as well. And the mechanic, we can get to that part of the conversation.
Wait, I'm sorry. When he went to go visit the car, where was the car, Mr. Coppola?
At my mechanic's house.
Okay, all right. So go on, Mr. Davella.
Mr. Coppola had informed myself and the driver that he was getting a used engine from California with 100,000 miles on it. And I looked at him and I said, why didn't you go to the shop that's down on Sunrise Highway that specializes in refurbished motors with guarantees? I can't afford it, et cetera, et cetera. So the mechanic says that he ordered the engine. It'll be here next Tuesday. And I said, okay. Mr. Coppola was talking about discounting his $5,000 and picking up part of the tab. And we pick up the other part of the tab. And I said, I need a copy of the purchase order to discuss with the owner. And he goes, I don't have it. I said, so you shipped an engine from California to New York and you don't have a purchase order for it. They just put it on a truck and they're sending it here. And he goes, well, I put the order through a friend of mine who put it on his credit card and we didn't pay for it in full. I said, who does this? I said, no, something's not right here. I said, here's my email address. This is my phone number. Send me an invoice or a purchase order. I want to find out who you got the engine from so that we can check it out. If it's a legitimate claim, we're happy to talk. But if it's fraudulent, then we're going to have a problem here and we're going to fight it. And we never got anything. So here we are in front of you so that you can adjudicate the matter however you see fit. But I don't see we have liability. I mean, I really don't.
I don't see any proof, Mr. Coppola, that they did something. In fact, I see proof that there was a problem with your car before they touched your car because you ended up having to call them to get a tow. You're not a mechanic. You don't know what was wrong, but apparently the language that was used by someone is the motor's no good because that's actually the notes that were written when the order comes in. But either way, what you're describing they did isn't anything that would cause an engine to go, and you have no proof. I don't know if it is or isn't, but you would have to prove that it was, and at a minimum, by putting on the testimony of a certified mechanic or showing me the analysis of a legitimate mechanic's place. The fact that he's your friend and you always take your stuff to him and you take it to his house, all that's very nice. And the fact that he has a different business selling tires is very nice. But not even anything on that proves that it's their fault. It's just him writing down, they forced the engine on. He wrote down what you told him to write down. They forced the engine onto the, I mean, it's just silly. This isn't proof by a preponderance of the evidence that it is their fault and that they got to pony up $5,000 for a new motor. I'm finding in favor of the defendant in this case.
That's a crock.
So the plaintiff fails to prove his case to the judge. Mr. Cowboy, you failed to prove the case. What are you thinking? The judge found that
I think it's wrong because they didn't want to hear the whole story. And I think it's wrong. This outcome was wrong. The DMV, I have the standard operating procedure. He's supposed to bring the car to the flatbed to the car and tow and with the pulley pull it up the bed. He drove it up, and all of a sudden now oil's on the ground. It's my fault. Okay, it's not a problem.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion, but according to the judge, you just didn't have enough proof to win your case. Mr. Davella, he's a little upset. You want to respond to what he just said?
I think it's a financial hardship case. I think it was that from the beginning. He tried. There was no burden of proof. He couldn't. That's why we went to the field. We took a look at what the situation was. If we had liability, we would have went through the insurance company, but we didn't. And he was supposed to get us some additional information, which he never got us. The judgment is correct.
All right. Well, congratulations. You're in the right on this case. Good enough.
Well, Doug, it's really as simple as this. This is a civil case. And we have talked about this before, but the burden of proof is just slightly tipping the scales. The plaintiff has the burden of proving that it was the defendant who did the damage. 5149 will do it. But in this case, the plaintiff simply came up short. You have to tip those scales to prove it's more likely than not. The plaintiff didn't do it, so he loses.
If a dog is left in a car with the windows cracked, and someone comes along and decides that dog is in trouble and smashes the window to get the dog, can the owner sue the person for property damage? I mean, this is more of a moral question than a legal question. Why is it okay to break into someone's property if dogs are property too, and you're smashing a window to get the dog?
Okay, it's
This is the hot car scenario, I take it, in the hot sunlight,
right, and it is a legal question. It's entirely a legal question.
Right.
Most legal questions are also moral questions because the law is trying to get people to do the right thing. But all right. So, no, you don't have the right to bash their window in. Call the police and have the police respond, and then the police might bash the window in. But then it's somebody with some experience who has immunity.
Right.
This is something you should call the police and say, hey, I've been watching, that car has had that dog there for 5 hours or whatever you're going to say.
The only time I would disagree with you is if you're in a place, maybe a rural area, where you know the response time isn't going to be very fast, and the dog looks like it's in trouble.
Well, the dog, it looks like it's expiring, and I mean, that's a different issue. Worry about it later. Yeah, break the window.
The interior of a car can get like an oven. It can be 150 degrees like that.
Right.
It won't take long.
Well, in Florida, it does.
And
Florida's an issue.
Right. And if you crack a window an inch or an inch and a half, that's probably not enough. I think you've got to get a little more circulation than that. You're just going to have an oven that's not 150. It'll be 145.
Right. Our dog loves being in the car.
She does.
She would rather we take her with her to run all our errands, and then we leave the window open this much.
Yeah.
And, not enough for her to harass someone else, but enough for her to breathe. And we don't do it when it's particularly hot.
And she's very territorial about the car. So
She is
God
territorial
help
about
you
the car.
if you go to the car and you're not you or me.
Right. But she would much rather spend the day with us doing errands than be alone in the house.
No question.
Well, that'll do it for this session of the People's Court. We'll see you next time.